everyone! Welcome to the third week of February and the third Black History Month video! Yay! I've struggled a bit with this video because I had two very distinct ideas of what I wanted to do. Did I want to learn more about the Harlem Renaissance and further justify my anger at the white cast for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? Or did I want to learn about some amazing historical queer black women? And then a thought occurred. There were probably queer women in the Harlem Renaissance. I'm so smart. Two big pieces of background info before we get into this. Number one, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is an upcoming movie set in the Harry Potter Wizarding World universe. It takes place in New York City in 1926, and of the 11 people who have been cast who do not have names like Pedestrian or Candy Store Girl, there are two women of color. And I'm being a little generous because the name of Gemma Chan's character has not yet been revealed, but I assume there is one. She could be Candy Store Girl number 2. We don't know. But our main quartet is entirely white. Why does that matter? Besides the fact that it's a movie for one of the most successful and popular movie franchises of all time, and they probably could have cast a leopard to play Newt Scamander, or an actual Newt, and people still would have gone to see it. It would have been more accurate to cast more people of color in this movie, given the time, especially black people. What? Which brings me to number 2. The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural and artistic movement that took place roughly between 1919 and the mid-1930s in a New York City neighborhood called Harlem, which by the 1920s was almost entirely populated by black people. The black population of Harlem, as well as its Renaissance, came about mostly because of the first Great Migration, which was when an estimated 1.6 million African Americans moved from the rural South to the urban North and Midwest in hope of better jobs and better standards of living and just less racism between 1910 and 1930. And just to debunk that myth right now, there was still racism. Once the First World War was over, the United States was in a place where it could like kick back and relax, revel in not being in a war, and ban alcohol, because why not? All of these African Americans who found themselves interacting and living with other African Americans at the safest and best time in their history in America so far sort of started thinking about what it meant to be black in America and how to express that struggle through art. And this was the Harlem Renaissance. And it set the foundation for a lot of American black culture. We see the development of really big trends in writing and art and dancing and music that didn't just influence black American culture specifically, but also American culture in general, and they impacted the way those things developed over the next several decades. I figured that the difficult part of this video was going to be finding queer black women. And though I will say it was much easier to find articles about the gay men like Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen, it was surprisingly easy to not just find one or two queer black women, but several. Before I talk about them though, I want to say that I did look for trans women in the Harlem Renaissance and I was unable to find any. That does not mean that I think that they did not exist, but if anybody knows of any, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to learn more about them. It was a super long intro, let's go. Mabel Hampton was a lesbian activist and dancer who, from the most objective standpoint, had a pretty crappy childhood. Most of them did, actually, now that I think about it. During the Renaissance, she danced in all black productions and she went to all kinds of parties and she just generally had a great time. Later in her life, she was a huge champion and supporter for the gay and lesbian community. And she collected documents about her life and gave them to the Lesbian Her Story Archives. Josephine Baker is by far the most well-known person on this list. She was a bisexual dancer and singer who during the Renaissance danced at the Plantation Club and also danced in the choruses of Broadway revues. She usually was the last dancer in the chorus line, which was specifically a comedic part in which she would forget the choreography for the routine and then at the very last second would remember it and also do a more complicated version of it. Jackie Moms Mabley was a stand-up comedian who came out as a lesbian when she was 27, which was around 1921. So she's one of the first comedians ever to be openly gay. I also want to take a moment to remind everyone that basically until the 1970s, sodomy laws were still in place in the United States. So like it wasn't just a dangerous thing because you could get beaten up or murdered, which is obviously dangerous, but the law would condone you being beaten up or murdered because you were gay. It's kind of a big deal. During the Renaissance, she would do stand-up in androgynous clothing, but it's also during this time that she developed her most famous comedic character in which she would play an elderly woman who had an insatiable thirst for young men. Racism also played a huge role in her comedy. She used it as a way to comment on society's treatment of black people, which at the time was very new and very fresh and very bold. You see a lot of that now, but that's only because she did it first and she did it so well. Gladys Bentley was just so cool. That's not really anywhere in writing, I just know in my heart that she was the raddest of any bees that ever had knees. She was openly lesbian in her early career as a singer, though she unfortunately had to sort of closet herself during the McCarthy era. But during the Renaissance, she frequently performed at a place called Harry Hansberry's Clam House, which was apparently one of New York City's most famous gay speakeasies. That name is so funny. Harry Hansberry's Clam House. Her signature look was a tuxedo and a top hat. Reminds me of someone. She would sing these really raunchy versions of these white and cutesy romantic ballads, and she would flirt with women in the audience while she was on stage. Unlike most of the other women so far, the Renaissance was really the peak of her career, and she went on to have an unhappy and closeted life afterwards, which makes me really sad. Finally, we've got Alice Dunbar-Nelson, a bisexual journalist, poet, and activist. During the Renaissance, she was almost entirely devoted to journalism, especially using that platform as a way to talk about and promote women's rights. Since journalism at this point was not only a male-dominated profession, but also a really cutthroat one, she was treated pretty badly. Sometimes she wasn't paid for her articles, or she wasn't given proper credit for what she had written. But she actually went on to be really successful in that field. There were more women that I wanted to talk about, but I did not have time. Women like Ma Rainey and Ethel Waters and Bessie Smith. There were actually quite a few more lesbian writers, but they were all much sadder. Thank you all for watching. Like this video if you like queer black women in history. Let me know in the comments if there's anyone that I missed that you're disappointed that I didn't mention, or if there's something that I didn't mention about the women that I did discuss. Let me know. I love learning about all these awesome women. And subscribe to see our last and final Black History video, but also subscribe because we do other cool things for the rest of the year too. And by some magic movie-making miracle, the princess and I will see you next week. It takes place in New York City in 1926, and of the 11 people who have been cast who have names, not the